You are listening to Exposure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and you just heard 2 tracks from the brand new album by Suede. Antidepressants is the album. It has just come out today, and the 2 opening tracks are Disintegrate and Dancing with the Europeans. I think they sound so fantastic together that I had to play them back to back before I spoke to Mat Osman and Brett Anderson from Suede, who are here with me now. Hello.
Hi, John.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Lovely
it's great
to be here.
It's great to have you back, and it's great to see you both. And I couldn't resist playing those 2 together. I just think there's such a wonderful momentum to the 2 back to back. It has such a great energy to it, and it's a brilliant start to the album. And it's a brilliant album. I know this is easy with the praise straight away, but it really is. It's so exciting, and especially the first half seems to have this real momentum to it.
Yeah.
It's really, and they feel quite anthemic and almost kind of jubilant in a way, particularly Dancing with the Europeans.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of... it's quite a sort of joyful record in lots of ways. I think it's a strange combination of things. Some of the themes are quite dark, but there's a sort of sense of defiance in the record and a sense of joy, I think. And I really wanted that to come through in the songs. It's quite a sort of an anthemic record in lots of ways, you know.
Yeah, totally. I really agree. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got the opening track called Disintegrate, and that would imply certain things, but it does feel kind of jubilant, or almost like a rally cry of some kind.
Yeah, I've always tried to write songs that kind of have that sort of anthemic, sort of tribal kind of sort of call to arms thing. I really love that, when you're kind of like you're singing to your tribe almost. And with a song like Disintegrate, it's an interesting one because it's kind of a song about sort of embracing your own demise. Which sounds really gloomy, but I don't know. Sometimes you've just got to kind of like I don't know. You just got to grasp the nettle in life and in death, I suppose. You know what I mean? It's sort of almost a song of kind of like acceptance in that sense. You know?
Yeah. Do you think acceptance of death does lead to a better understanding of life?
I think that
I know that's a big question.
Yeah, it's a huge question. I mean, I think acceptance of death leads to I don't know if you can ever understand life, or if there's any point to understanding life. But I think there is a point to enjoying life, and I think that acceptance of death helps you live life, live in the moment, and enjoy life for the short amount of time that you have on this earth. And I think that's a really, really sort of liberating thought. You know. When you're young, you don't have that kind of fear of death, and you kind of like you go around and with a sort of cloud above your head. And as you get older, you kind of embrace this sort of sense of defiance and this kind of like sense that you couldn't give a. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's quite liberating, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Dancing with the Europeans has a nice story behind it, doesn't it? Where you were kind of almost dancing with Europeans.
Yeah, I kind of inspired by a gig we did in Spain, and it's sort of just about the power of the kind of power and connectivity of music. You know, the way that it kind of like links people together. And I just remember it was just a gig, and I was sort of going through a bit of a bad time personally or whatever, and just sort of did this gig, and the kind of connection with the audience was such a sort of incredible feeling, and it kind of just made me and I just sort of thought this phrase "dancing with the Europeans." I thought there was a nice kind of slogan, and I sort of pinned the slogan onto the song.
Yeah. And I mean, these 2 tracks are such a great way of setting up this record, because it has such a great energy. In terms of time frame and inspirations, I mean, when you came in to talk about Autofiction, discussing that was the punk album, and I'm hearing a lot of Public Image Limited on this record, but also in a way, Disintegrate starts for a few seconds like left field and then goes into Killing Joke or Theatre of Hate or something, which is, all these, the way the guitar is used and the driving beat and the bass as well, Matt. There's a certain kind of, because there's a lot of melody in the bass as well, isn't there?
I mean, a lot of this comes from Richard kind of being a bit unleashed on this record. He's one of those people, because he's such a talented musician, that if you tell him to play something, he can play it, you know what I mean? So oftentimes, we're talking about the kind of records we like and stuff. And with this record, he really kind of just took charge, you know what I mean? I think the sound of it and the direction of it is very much his. And all those things that you were talking about, Public Image, he loves, The Fall, Susie and the Banshees, all the, Keith Levine and people like that. All of that is in there totally. And it's almost like you're hearing Richard with the kind of shackles off, really, with him just doing what moves him. So yeah, I think you hear those things far more clearly than you ever did.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously when you're starting out, you're trying to create your own identity and define yourselves. And often the stuff that's around you or the stuff that was immediately before you can't be brought in at that point.
No, that's totally true.
There'd be no point in doing that, because then you'd be, they're just a rip-off of them, or they're just continuing that thing. And I know that Johnny Marr particularly has said in interviews over the last kind of 10 years about how he loved all those bands, but he couldn't put them into the
he
Smiths
had to go back to kind of like the 60s and stuff like that to have an identity of his own, yeah.
I think as you get older as a band, you're much more maneuverable, because it doesn't really matter what you do, it's always going to be stamped with your identity. When you're a young band, it's too easy to sort of like come across like a copyist. As you're, this is our 10th studio album, and I think we could go quite a long way. I really want the music to become simpler and more primal still, and more black and white. And I think we can do that now, because it's always going to be Suede. It's always going to be the band has got such a lot of musical identity now, and the way I sing has got a very specific identity, that we can kind of go quite extreme and go and become more brutal and more simplified in lots of ways, and it's still going to be Suede. I don't think we could have done that in the early days.
Even though you did come out with your own sound pretty much straight away, and
yeah. But that sound was, it's slightly misleading to think that it was straight away, because that was sort of years of
years of failure.
Years of failure, exactly. It was kind of when we first started, we didn't have our own sound. We were some sort of like awful kind of like baggy copyist
kind of
rubbish.
Stone Roses.
Yeah, that didn't deserve to be heard by anyone, and unfortunately, with the internet, people have heard it these days. But it wasn't kind of like people we're not kind of known for it or anything like that. But the early songs were rubbish. Everyone's early songs are rubbish. I mean, there's very few people that kind of like hit the ground running. Part of the game is that you kind of like you kind of go through various filters. And you sort of like it's a hard knock life, and you learn the hard way, and you kind of you fail, and you pick yourself up, and you dust yourself off, and you try again, and slowly over a period of time you sort of get good at what you do. The interesting thing about Suede musically, I think, is that we were never good enough musicians to copy other bands. So when all the other bands of our sort of like generation were probably better musicians, to be honest, and they could play the funky drummer thing, and they could do the wah-wah thing, and this was like 1990 or whatever, when everyone wanted to sound like whatever, and we couldn't, for some reason we couldn't do that. It just didn't work with this sort of thing. So we had to go away and sort of become the only band which we could do, and that was us, and it's just sort of like, this kind of one thing that we could do. We just sort of learn how to do it better over the years.
But then that's the essential thing, to come up and find your own identity is kind of what it's about.
Yes,
but
exactly.
You're right, you do have to go through all these different stages of development in order to arrive at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This applies across the arts, why people.
You've got to be a tadpole first, haven't
you?
Before you can become a frog.
Of course.
Well, very much a big frog these days. There's a terrible description of this band.
What a compliment. You're big frogs now.
Antidepressants is the next song I'm going to play. It's the title track of the album. And tell us about this, because this, again, it seems like a kind of anthem to me, and it feels so positive in many ways. No, it's a really interesting contrast, this contrast between some of the words and some of the titles and the feeling that they evoke in the listener. Yeah. Because this seems to say, when I'm singing a song, I'm happy, which is a brilliant sentiment.
Yeah, and in one sense, that's the kind of meaning. I never kind of contradict other people's meanings, other people's interpretations, because I think they're just as valid as my own in a way. I think the writer has sort of limited ownership of his own work in a funny sort of way. What I think is what's really interesting for me on this song is the kind of what personally, what I'm trying to do with the sort of style of this vocal delivery is sort of like I'm sort of working out this new kind of identity with my singing, kind of doing this sort of like speaking, singing sort of thing. I think it really works in this. But message-wise, I kind of like that it's ambiguous. It's sort of like, you know, I'm kind of sort of responding to a medicalised society, which I think is a really interesting place that society's at the moment. I'm not necessarily a good place or a bad place. It's just interesting. It's just a thing. I'm responding to that, really.
Yeah, maybe it's a phase that we're going through where we're applying that approach to understand life, or people are in general. Or back in Plato's day, it might have been different. They might have come up with some other hypotheses.
I think there's a massive ego to sort of modern society and modern governments and modern sort of like power structures where they think that they can kind of make life perfect. And I don't think that that's true. I think that's deluded. I think that kind of like life is imperfect, and you just have to embrace that.
Yeah, totally. Really interesting. And there's a Lydon-esque quality to the vocal, I think, you know, in some ways, and it's across the album in different ways. The way you're approaching and changing and developing.
Yeah.
And which is an amazing thing, isn't it? You know, so many years in, 35 years in, 10 albums deep, you know, and you're still trying to do something different. Yeah, I feel as though we're quite unique in that way, to be honest, Suede. I feel like we're still evolving our sound, and it's not over yet. And I think that's so exciting. I don't really feel like we have anyone else that's sort of like still pushing it in the same way, to be honest. And you know, it's a really exciting thing. It's sort of how it's the motor for why we do this in lots of ways. The thought of what we can do next. It's always about that for me. It's always about what we can do next rather than what we did 30 years ago. Yeah, fantastic. Well, we're going to hear the next step. It is the title track of the new album. This is Suede with Antidepressants on X-Posure, Radio X. It is Suede with broken music for broken people on X-Posure, Radio X. It's another selection from the new album Antidepressants, which has just come out. I'm John Kennedy, and with me tonight are Brett Anderson and Mat Osman from Suede, and that has to be a single. I'm making it this weekend's Exposure Big One, which is like my single of the week.
Oh, wow.
Because I just think it's such a fantastic song. And if it hasn't been a single yet, I don't think, but it really should be. And,
it's a big sort of anthemic kind of song, isn't it? Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, it's in the same sort of world as something like Trash, I think, in that sense. It's a sort of us against the world song. I kind of just came up with the title again. Sometimes you find a title and it's almost like a slogan, and it's quite a powerful slogan. And when people sort of like ask me what it means and stuff, I don't quite know how to answer, but it sort of means something to me. Slogans can be meaningful just in a really simplistic way. Thanks. I think it's a good, powerful, anthemic song.
Yeah, totally. I can't wait to hear it live. I think it's going to be amazing, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because you know, an anthem for broken people is an important thing in a way, but it's almost as if, you know, a lot of anthems wouldn't be for broken people. They're for kind of putting people back together.
The unbroken people don't need an anthem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're fine.
They don't deserve one. Bruce Springsteen's got it wrong.
You know, that's. One of the things that, you know, after Autofiction, I think we've almost surprised at the effect the songs had live. You know what I mean? We'd written them very, very live, and we tried to record them live. But we always try to do that, and we never really manage it. And that tour is one of my favourite times of being in Suede, to be honest. That British tour, the reaction was so celebratory, and just watching people kind of come together, it was just great. And it's been this weird kind of the opposite of a vicious circle, I suppose, a virtuous circle, that we came back from that tour going, right, we're going to make songs like that. We're going to make songs that move people, literally make people move. And I think we went into this record with the idea of taking the kind of energy of Autofiction, but making it broader and more widescreen. You know, Autofiction is quite like tight and gnarly, and there's lots of stuff on this record that I think is a bit more kind of expansive, and that's totally one of those that. I mean, I think literally as you're performing it, you're imagining playing it live, aren't you? You're not sitting in the studio with the headphones on.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, this needs to be this needs to have people singing it back to you.
It was going to be the title for the album for a long time, actually, Broken Music for Broken People. And that was what I kind of always send a kind of like an email out to the band saying, this is what I want to call the album. And way back in, February, March or something like that, I sent that email. And then I kind of sort of had this sort of kind of got cold feet about it. I just thought that it was too unwieldy for an album title. I needed something pithier. But in a way, I think of it as this album is being called Antidepressants, kind of
Open brackets,
Broken Music for Broken People. It's that sort of, it's like, that's what it is. It seems almost like an explanation of what the record's about.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, I just think that the words and the delivery combined with the music is such a powerful combination.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
It really connects. I think for me anyway, I'm responsible. I mean, maybe it's because of the kind of mixture of ingredients, and I'm kind of similar. Well, the same era.
Yeah.
And so it connects and makes complete sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's always the magic, isn't it? For me, I've spent my whole life being obsessed with that alchemy, looking for the magic when you get the right melody with the right words. And that's what pop music is, isn't it? It's that kind of magic that you can create out of nothing.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. And that combination can bring so much depth to something that on paper might not seem.
Yeah, you can never tell where the magic slips in. You really can't. It's a number of times we're recording something and it's been good, you know what I mean? We've known it was okay, and we're rehearsing or recording, and it just clicks, and suddenly it's not the sum of its parts anymore. It's this,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's such a magical moment.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is that people try and hide the mystery of it because they think it'll disappear if they try and explain it, but it just doesn't. You can never get to it. I kind of feel this with the gigs. We experimented recently with making the gigs much plainer and smaller stages and much closer, and trying to get away from this kind of, there's this huge impressive band up here with a light show and blah blah blah, and you must sit there and be kind of like blown away by it, and try and make it this real little connection, because however small you make it, the magic still slips in somewhere. You know what I mean? And you still get this kind of chemical thing with a crowd. And I love that you just you can never quite grasp it.
Yeah.
It's all about the crowd for me. It's all about the crowd. It's all about the audience and about how the audience responds to it. It's almost like the band is just one side of this. And I think art generally is a question, and a question sort of doesn't exist unless there's an answer, and the answer is supplied by the audience. It's like a kind of a ship without any water. It doesn't have any purpose. It needs to float on an audience kind of thing. And I'm always thinking about that much more consciously now. I think maybe I was thinking about subconsciously before. But our audience is so key to it all, and the way they sort of support the band and stuff is amazing. And they're kind of incredible people. They're kind of like they're utterly devoted to the band and utterly selfless. And there's a kind of an amazing Suede tribe out there, which we're so grateful that exists.
Yeah. And you're talking of live performances. You're taking over the South Bank for a few weeks, really. And you've already played there once. Was that playing the whole of the record?
Yeah, I played the new
Back to
record,
back.
played Antidepressants. Yeah, we did we did it in the Claw Ballroom, which is it's like the foyer of the festival hall, which doesn't sound very auspicious, but it's actually quite exciting. We kind of screened it all off and everything, so it was this sort of dark little space, and we just played the new album, and then sort of basically songs from the post-Reformation period, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, excellent. And there's more to come. But I'm going to play another track from the album. I'm kind of splitting the album up in a different kind of way than you've put the order. So I'm going to play Criminal Ways, which is but just because to keep this upbeat thing. And I'm going to look at the slower tracks a little bit later on in tonight's show. But Criminal Ways has a really nice swagger to it, which I really enjoyed.
It's thuggish, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Something I wouldn't necessarily think of.
It's kind of bouncy and thuggish, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's
a weird combination. Yeah. No, it's that one's brilliant live.
Yeah.
We've only played it live twice, I think.
No, once.
Is that the only time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
played
and
it
it
the
just it really kicked off. I can't wait to get like a proper room full of people listening to that.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. We're going to hear it now. This is Suede with Criminal Ways on X-Posure Radio X. You are listening to X-Posure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that's another selection from the brand new album by Suede. Antidepressants has just come out. That is somewhere between an atom and a star. And with me tonight are Brett and Matt from the band, giving us some insight into the new record, the 10th Suede album. And a lot of the album has this swagger, it has this momentum, this energy, and then there are a few other tracks that kind of calm things down and take us into another world, a world that has been explored by you in different ways before, and somewhere between an atom and a star is the first instance of that, which is a great title. I mean, it's where did that come from?
I stole it from a book. It was the title of a chapter of a book, and I can't remember which book I stole it from. Because what I do is I just write things down. I kind of like nick things. Watching films and listening to people and stuff like that. I just write things down, and then I always forget where they came from.
I
and
think
then
it's a mathematics textbook I read.
Well, I tell you, I do. No, it's not. It's actually. Well, it might be, but it was a title of a novel, of a chapter of a novel. But it did. I do remember it specifically referred to the mass of a human being.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which is between an atom and a star. Anyway, that sounds incredibly highbrow. I just thought it was a beautiful title, and sometimes that's enough. You know, it sort of seemed to suggest a whole load of things and. There seemed to be a sort of it was one of the songs. Interestingly enough, there's two songs on the album that survive. We started writing a new album after Autofiction. Before Autofiction was released, we started writing what we thought was going to be the 10th album, which was it was going to be a sort of like a weird sort of like left field sort of ballet soundtrack thing. We thought, how can we? What's the most opposite we can go from Autofiction? We thought doing something like that. And then what happened was when we first started playing Autofiction live and the audience was responding to it, we kind of realised that we wanted to do that again.
Yeah. A bit more fun.
Yeah,
potentially.
Just enjoy ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so this ballet was just an idea.
Well, we actually we sort of wrote a whole album, really. And
had anybody come in to suggest, I want you to create a ballet?
No. It was our idea.
We were going to have to dance it ourselves, basically.
Yeah, we weren't going to dance it. We were going to get proper ballet dancers. But it's sort of like we had discussions with some companies and stuff like that, and it was a kind of like a thing that we were thinking about. We just sort of like, I think we're quite sort of restless. As a band, we like kind of like trying new ideas. We don't like just doing the same thing over and over again. I don't like it becoming tired. It has to feel sort of fresh somehow. I think increasingly so as we get older. And that was just a way of kind of keeping it fresh. But it just wasn't the right move at that point. It might be something we go back to. But anyway, my point was there's two songs on the album, which is somewhere between An Atom and a Star and Life is Endless, Life is a Moment, that are both kind of survivors from that original ballet album. And even though musically they're a little bit, they don't feel like they're quite in the same family, I thought they were good songs and they provided a kind of gear shift in the record. I didn't want to make have this album as just having one kind of like tone the whole way through. A Suede album needs sort of various gear shifts, and that was one of the songs that provided the gear shift.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to be playing Life is Endless, Life is a Moment in a moment. But I thought I'd play June Rain next because that's another one of the songs that takes things down a little, although this actually builds up and gets pretty epic.
Yes. Yeah. This is one of my favourite songs on the album, actually, June Rain. This probably underwent the most changes. So if anyone listens to the demo of this, they'd hear a very different sort of song. It's almost like this sort of like, kind of like, I don't know. It's
quite indie, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't really have the drama, does it? It's sort of like it's
got a really nice melody, and we just kind of played it, and it was one of those things. I think we always thought there's more here. And I'm not sure what it is. There's something.
Well, it was actually Ed. To be fair to Ed, I think it was Ed, the producer. He suggested kind of me singing the first part in a low octave, and then going up the octave for the second chorus, and that's when the song kind of explodes and takes off. And I thought that was a brilliant suggestion. He kind of made the song, to be honest, and it was such a great observation by him. Sometimes he does do good observations.
Sometimes. So this is Ed Buller, who you've worked with more than anybody else. How many records has he produced?
God, he's made at
Suede?
least 6 or 7 with us, hasn't he? And
Yeah.
he made the first 3.
Yeah, he's done.
Didn't do the 4
He's done
or
7,
5.
so hasn't he? Because there's only 3 that he didn't do.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So 7 out of the 10.
Yeah,
So this is a brilliant creative partnership.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like part of the family, really. It's he's a sort of, he's like a kind of like strange kind of like relation, isn't he, or something like that?
Yeah, I think he has something which you really need as a band gets older, which is kind of quality control. You know what I mean? He's really good at saying that isn't good enough. And I think
he's very good at that.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it is. No, but I think there's a battle as a band goes on. There's a battle against kind of acceptance and comfort and all these kind of things. It's so easy once you get to the stage that you're playing festivals, and you've got fans and everything like that. It's so easy to kind of like take your eye off the ball and just make records that sound a bit like what you did before, that are kind of not quite as good. And I think we all work really hard on making sure everything we do goes to some kind of new place for us. It doesn't have to be miles away, you know what I mean? It's not, right, let's do a reggae album. But finding a space where, kind of like, have we done that before? And June Rain's a really good example, I think, that if we'd recorded as we started, it would have been a nice-ish Suede ballad. But it feels to me now like something we've never really done before. We've never done anything that really grows and breathes in that way. And that came from him. But I think that's the question we're always asking ourselves is, have we done this before? Have we done this better? And I mean, how many songs did you guys write for this record?
50.
It's an insane amount of throwing stuff away, but it's really, really important. It's really important that you never really kind of let up on yourselves and just go, we'll coast through this record and then we'll go on tour.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, this is a good example then of the importance of having that relationship with that slight outsider who's still part of the team or part of the gang or whatever phrase you want to use. But that brilliant combination of truth in a way.
Yeah.
Somebody who's able to kind of say, well, hang on a minute, I think that maybe you could do this or maybe you could do that. And that you would be in a position where you could listen to that and receive it and work with it and see how you can develop something.
I think it's the death of creativity if you surround yourself with yes men, and Ed isn't a yes man, and that's sort of like how he works with the band. He challenges us, which is really important for us, I think.
Yeah, but it's understandable in some ways when people get to a certain point where they have an established reputation, they have an established way of working, and they've got a good sense of who they are and what they're doing. But so it's quite hard for somebody to kind of gate crash that and say, "Oh, hang on a minute, you got that all wrong."
Yeah.
Because they want to respect that too, and one of the reasons why they're there is because they respect that. So it's
totally, yeah. It's a hard balance to get right, but we kind of, I feel as though we always sort of get it over the line in the end with Ed. So.
Yeah. Well, it sounds fantastic. This is June Rain. It's Suede on X-Posure Radio X. It is Suede with June Rain on X-Posure Radio X, the penultimate song on the new album Antidepressants, which has just come out, and that flows beautifully into the next song I'm about to play. We mentioned already that you're taking over the South Bank. There are still quite a few events still to come. So the album is out, but your takeover of the South Bank continues in various different forms. So there's a showing of The Insatiable Ones and a discussion about that film coming up next Friday. Then you're playing at the Royal Festival Hall 2 nights, Saturday and Sunday, the 13th and 14th. Then on the 17th, you've got this other performance at the Purcell Room, which I think is, I read that it was off mic or something.
It's kind of bits of it, most of it are totally acoustic. So no mics on the instruments or anything like that. Bits of it will have little mics, but
We'll Brett have a microphone to sing
No,
into? No.
Well, I'm definitely going to do some of it completely in the room. When we on tour, and if the room feels like the right kind of room, and it feels kind of intimate enough, and the audience are respectful enough, I sometimes do like an off mic kind of thing where I literally just go and wander to the side of the stage and project into the room, and that can be quite exciting. When it really works because there's a kind of an intimacy where sometimes amplified sound is impressive, but it's not intimate, and it kind of creates a barrier between you and the audience. And I like that thing with where you remove those barriers. So we're going to try a whole gig like that.
Wow.
It might be a disaster. We'll find out.
That's a really it's a really interesting approach, though.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of comes down to what we were talking about before, which is trying to break down the barriers between band and audience. You know what I mean? It's kind of the closer you can get, and the more you can actually speak to people, the more, for me, the more kind of emotional it gets at the gigs. You know what I mean? I'm less and less interested in kind of impressing people.
That's lovely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, but do you know what I mean? When more and more when I go and see like kind of like rock shows or pop shows, you're kind of like, wow, that's impressive. You know what I mean? Kind of, oh my God, look at those lights.
Look at those fireworks they.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, who cares?
And that's, I mean, the minute that you need fireworks, there's something's going on, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Maybe we should have fireworks in the Purcell room. You know,
that would be great.
Yeah,
indoor fireworks.
Do it completely kind of off mic, and then let off some fireworks. Yeah. But
basket.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting as well, because it's like we're going to try and sort of create an atmosphere where you're almost in a kind of bedroom with the band, sort of, not bedroom, like a living room or something like that. Like when we first started, or probably when most bands first start, we just used to sort of like sit in my old bedroom in my dad's council house and sort of have our guitars on our laps, and there wasn't any microphones or anything. It was just sort of like you're in a room, and there's a certain sort of sound to that as soon as you amplify things, you lose. And there's an intimacy, and I think it might be interesting for an audience, because audiences don't normally hear that kind of intimacy. They kind of like, you know, even if it's an acoustic show, it's always amplified, and you know, it's a different sort of thing. So I think it'll be interesting because they'll hear how some of the songs almost sort of how they came to life, which would have been just sort of a couple of people sitting around with acoustic guitars and singing badly in a room.
It sounds amazing, and in terms of the set, that will be across the board from through.
Yeah, I think it'll be sort of, you know, just, you know, old and new, and
actually it's genuinely across the board.
Yeah,
it's got the oldest song we've ever done, and obviously some of the newest.
There's a song that was written in about 1988 in there. So
yeah,
amazing
that has been released.
Yeah, it's called God's Gift. It was sort of released. I can't remember when it was released. When we were searching around for B-sides, we did it. And we wrote it such a long time ago. When we used to be in a band called The Perfect. Me and Matt and Justine Frischman, and one of the songs was called God's Gift.
The last song I'm going to play is "Life Is Endless, Life Is a Moment," the closing track on the album. Again, an amazing title.
Thank you.
And is this going to be in the Purcell room, do you think? Or is this...
No, I don't think so.
Because there is another performance you're going to do, which will be at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, which will be orchestral, with the Parrot Orchestra, who you worked with recently, Brett.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's another side of things again, you know, especially in contrast to the Purcell room. No, but then I guess orchestras play without mics. Potentially, often.
They do. That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, they do. But I think just sort of rock shows tend to be mic'd, don't they? Yeah. So we're doing a show with the Parrot Orchestra. It's basically sort of like Suede. It's going to be kind of Suede ballads from across the decades. God. With orchestrated, and yeah, I think it'll sound great. The Parrot Orchestra are kind of amazing.
Yeah, they're great.
Group of people. I know Charles Hazelwood really well. I've worked with him before, so it'll be very exciting. So.
I think the whole South Bank shows, you know, the idea was to show kind of the breadth of the band. we'd never really just been one thing, you know what I mean? We've always been able to kind of switch between kind of like big ballads and, you know, rock songs and arty stuff and then kind of punk or whatever. And I think we all thought it'd be quite nice, to push ourselves a little bit, because these are all terrifying, you know, like working with orchestras is always difficult.
You've got to come in at the right place for a start.
Exactly, yeah. There's none of this kind of like wait until Brett starts singing, you know what I mean? It's kind of like...
Seriously, that's the main concern. Because when we play Suede gigs, like if I'm like really tired or something like that, I just lie on the floor and I just lie there and they go round the intro of the song.
Pantomime Horse is kind of 11 minutes long.
Well, I get my breath back.
But you know, it just felt like quite a nice thing to do to kind of. I think we rehearsed 70 songs. You know what I mean? It's a proper kind of. It shows everything that we do and everything that we love, really.
Amazing. And is it being documented in any way? You know, will there be a record?
It'll be sketched by various artists.
Yeah. That's definitely one way of doing it, and I think that would be a good way of doing it. But is it
like those courtroom sketches?
Yeah.
Everyone looking like
there is a bit of a
slightly
trend.
dodgy.
You know, I've been to a few gigs where people are sketching madly at shows, you know, just trying to capture that moment.
Wow.
Because everybody's kind of using camera phones and everything to I've seen a few people now who are there kind of frantically drawing in a book, which is it's a pretty cool thing. So that is one way of doing it. But I mean, will you record these things? I mean, the Purcell Room, it would almost seem wrong to record that moment in acoustic, non-mic'd glory that it will have. But at the same time...
Don't worry, it'll be on YouTube kind of 3 hours later.
That is the modern aspect. But official documentation of it, because it's an incredible undertaking, the South Bank takeover.
We're kind of excited about it. We kind of rehearsed quite a lot, but I think it's going to be good. So it's always... You know, we always like to sort of push ourselves a little bit. And, you know, the idea of kind of like doing a tour and just playing the same 15 songs night after night, it's like such a boring kind of concept for me. So, yeah, I like to stretch ourselves as much as we can, really.
Yeah. Life is Endless. Life is a Moment is the closing track, which I'm about to play. What can you tell us about this?
I think it sort of sums up one of the messages of the album, which is that the album is sort of intended as a memento mori, and the memento mori is the purpose of it. It's a reminder of death in order to encourage one to live life to the full, really. And that was really the message. I like that it's, as you get older, you reflect on the duality of life, and life does seem endless sometimes. It feels like you've been alive forever. And then sometimes you just think, God, it feels like I was 12 years old yesterday. And it has that weird duality of it. So I feel like simultaneously like a man approaching his 60s and a young boy still. Yeah,
you can kind of still tap into that younger person that you were, or you have flashes of it at times.
Yeah, I think I think of it as like Russian dolls. You know, I think all your different stages in life, they're there with you. They're there inside you. The kind of like the infant is there, and the kind of the 8-year-old boy and the adolescent and the 20-year-old. They're all kind of there. They're these sort of shells that you kind of carry with you, sort of thing. And that's quite a nice feeling, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, fantastic. Really brilliant to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you
for coming in.
Always good.
And I will see you soon, I hope. And I'm going to play the track now.
Hopefully
so this is
very soon.
Very soon, yes. Well, I'm really hoping to come to one of these. I've got the Sunday, the 14th, earmarked in my diary as like that.
Okay.
You know, but
cool.
Yeah, there may be other occasions too.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. Right. This is the last tonight then from Suede, from the new album Antidepressants. This is Life is Endless. Life is a Moment on X-Posure, Radio X.
Radio X.